Utah just signed a new law. It passed the legislature. It was signed into law by the governor. And it basically allows restaurant franchisees to close on Sundays if they want to, and they're not allowed to be punished by the parent company. And I'll back up so we can make sense of this. Like, you know how Chick-fil-A is famously closed on Sundays? They are, because the people, the Christian family that founded Chick-fil-A, they're like, we're super devout. We got to rest on the Sabbath, so Chick-fil-A is going to be closed on Sunday. And if you own a Chick-fil-A, it also has to be closed on Sunday. And that's just a company-wide policy. Even though they could make a ton of money if they were open on Sundays, they are famously closed. And that is true even if Chick-fil-A is in an airport. Or, this is the funniest one, there's a Chick-fil-A in like an NFL stadium, but it's closed on Sundays when all the football games are played. But that's the rule for Chick-fil-A. So this is kind of the opposite. And this is happening with a franchise you might have heard of. It's called Nothing Bundt Cakes. And they sell those little bundt cakes. I'm not particularly a fan of the food, but there you go. And this is a company that, if you haven't heard of them, it is pretty big. They made like $741 million as a company last year. They have over 600 locations. There is probably one near you. But basically, like any restaurant, like any company, they say, hey, we want you to spread our company. We want you to buy a franchise, open it in your community, and there are certain rules about how you manage that chain restaurant, right? And part of the rules say you have to be open X amount of hours every week, or a certain number of hours every day, or whatnot. And so here's what happened. These 600 locations, all these new franchisee owners, they signed the contract that says, yes, of course, we will follow the policies that the parent company sets for us. But last year, 2024, the owners, all those franchisees, they got a letter from corporate offices that said, hey, a year from now, we're making a change to our rules. And the rule is every store, every Nothing Bundt Cakes store has to be open on Sundays starting in February of 2025. So we're giving you a year notice that this is going to go into effect. Even though the original contract you signed did not say that, we're changing the contract a year from now saying you got to be open on Sundays. Okay? And what they said to a franchisee trade magazine, here's what the company said about it. A spokesperson for Nothing Bundt Cakes issued the following statement on behalf of corporate. We communicated to our full franchise system that all bakeries would operate 7 days a week and gave our franchisees more than a year to prepare. This new schedule will allow us to better meet the needs of our guests and is consistent with our franchise agreements. Okay, I mean, whatever. What they're basically saying, if you want to translate that, is, you guys, if we're open on Sundays, we can make a hell of a lot more money. So we're going to force all of our restaurants to be open on Sundays. Think about this. They might have said in the past, you got to be open for like 60 hours a week. But you, franchisee owner, you get to decide when that is. And so some restaurant owners might have said, okay, we're going to open this restaurant for like 12 hours on weekdays. And we'll call it, and we'll be off on weekends. And what the parent company is saying is, okay, but you need to be open 7 days a week at some point. Specifically, what they said is that franchisees have to be open 62 hours a week, and 5 of those hours have to be on Sunday. That is the rule that they told all these franchisees was going to go into effect a year from when they sent the letter. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. This is a one-way conversation. Why am I asking you stuff? So anyway, in Utah, that became an issue because there are apparently 9 chains, 9 Nothing Bundt Cake stores in Utah, and 7 of them are owned by like a small group of people. And one of those people, her name is Kelsey Hunt, she said, I don't want to do this because it's Utah. Mormons are like supposed to rest on the Sabbath, right? And this woman, Kelsey Hunt, she asked the corporate offices, can I just extend my hours the other days of the week to make sure I get 62 hours, but still say closed on Sundays? And corporate offices told her no. And another franchisee's like, you guys, we have to be closed on Sunday. This isn't just about religion for us. This is what another guy said. His name is Brad Barrett. Check this out. Because Sunday is a day of worship for so many people in our state, most stores choose to close on Sundays, and there is very little customer traffic on those days. He said, the business we'll get on Sundays would barely cover the costs of keeping our stores open. It makes very little sense to force us to remain open on Sundays, but they've made it very clear that this is what they want. Why? Because they'll get 10% of every dollar you make. That's why. Which is, you know what? I'm not even mad at him. That's a fair point. He's saying they want us to be open because corporate thinks they can make money. But as a franchisee owner, I'm telling you, you're not going to make a lot of money on Sundays because you're not going to get a lot of traffic because this is Utah and it's Sunday. But corporate offices are like, screw you. You got to be open on Sundays, right? Now, here's where he might be wrong, though. He's saying, there's not a lot of foot traffic. It's a Mormon state. People are home on the Sabbath. But Utah is drawing more non-Mormon families and businesses in recent years. And guess what? People got to eat, even on Sundays. And that's why the company didn't budge. They said, we are giving you until March 6th. That's like a week ago. March 6th to get in line, or you're going to lose your stores and we're going to take them back from you. And that is when a Republican in the Utah legislature was like, I can step in and help. Religion and law, that's like my jam. So this Republican's name is Ken Ivory. He is a state representative in Utah. And he decided, he's like, wait, I can use religion as a weapon. That's my favorite thing to do. So he proposed a bill, House Bill 441, if you want to look it up. And his bill would prohibit companies from forcing their franchisees to remain open if it violates their religious faith. And the bill also bars companies from changing their contracts to make franchisees stay open on those holy days, and bans companies from punishing owners who decide to take those days off. And the bill says, there's a caveat in there. The bill says, look, if you signed a contract that said you have to be open on Sundays and you signed that, okay, that's still in effect. But the parent company cannot change the contract to force you to work on Sundays. And if you don't work on Sundays, they can't punish you for not working on Sundays. And if the franchise does punish you, they can now be fined anywhere between $10,000 and $50,000. And this is what that Republican told the magazine, the trade magazine. Ivory's proposed legislation will ensure that franchisees have the assurance that their religious rights and convictions are not infringed in being mandated to operate on Sundays, unless such a stipulation was expressly negotiated and included in the initial franchise agreement, yada, yada, yada. Okay. So that bill made it through the state legislature really quickly because they had to get this in by March 6th. And Governor Spencer Cox, the Republican in Utah, he signed the bill into law on Friday. Now, Nothing Bundt Cakes, the parent company, they have not said yet they're going to fight this law. But there are legal reasons they could, because technically states are not allowed to pass laws that alter contracts, and that's kind of what this is. But there is another issue too. This is obviously a gift to Christian Mormon business owners who want Sundays off, right? The Republican who sponsored the bill even said in public postings that he's only doing this to help people get Sundays off. This is what he proposed back in January. If you left your corporate job and invested your life savings in a business opportunity that sold you on spending more time with your family and having Sundays off to worship as a family, don't you think that the company should honor their commitments, even if the company is later sold to investment bankers? That's what this bill is all about. It simply protects franchisees who bought into the franchise on the specific promise they would have Sundays off to be with and worship with their families. Honestly, I don't necessarily disagree with him on that. But notice how much emphasis he's putting on Sundays, Because if you look at the bill itself, it doesn't say Sunday in the bill. It just says holy days. You can't punish a franchisee for wanting to take off on a holy day, right? And that is the thing that I'm kind of wondering about, because what happens if you're a different religion? This is something the Franchise Times also brought up here. Look at this. The release from Ivory's office only mentions a Sunday exemption. It doesn't specify whether the legislation would offer similar religious freedom protections for Friday, the Sabbath for Muslims, or Saturday, the principal worship day for Seventh-day Adventists and followers of Judaism. Because, yeah, different religions have different days of the week that are their holy days. What happens if you run a restaurant and you now say, I want to take Fridays off because it's a religious holiday? And Friday might be one of the busiest days of the week for your restaurant, which means the corporate parent company is not making that money because you say you're religious and you happen to own that business. Like, you could see this going south and becoming a legal problem really quickly. And again, the way the law is written, it didn't say Christian, it didn't say Sundays, it just said religious freedom, like holy days, things like that. But you have to wonder, if all the owner has to do is cite their religion, at what point can the parent company override the decision? At what point should they be allowed to override that decision? What happens when people expect to be able to eat at a store only to see that it's closed on the day of the week they want to eat there? And then they start leaving negative reviews for that restaurant and that chain. And they start going on social media and saying, you know what sucks? Nothing Bundt Cakes. Because I went there with my family on Sunday and the place was closed. What a shitty restaurant. I'm never going to eat there again. And now the whole company is affected because some religious owners in some states are like, I don't want to be open on Sundays. I don't know legally where this goes, but there are issues that could emerge. I don't know. I just find that interesting. Like, Utah's new law may have solved the problem for a few franchise owners, but I think it creates some unexpected new ones. And I don't say this very often. I'm kind of looking forward to when legal scholars try to write papers on this law and the possible consequences of it all, because I feel like this is going to open a big can of worms. I don't know.